The grand ballroom of the Lang Hotel in London sparkled like a castle from a fairy tale. Shiny crystal lights hung from the ceiling and made everything glow with golden light. The floor was shiny marble, and you could hear people laughing, glasses clinking, and soft music from a group playing violins. It was a fancy night with lots of rich and famous people. CEOs, duchesses, movie stars, politicians, and popular people from the internet. They all looked very fancy. Outside the hotel, big shiny cars like Bentleys and black Rolls Royces were waiting. The engines made soft growling sounds like sleepy lions. A red carpet led up to the doors, with guards standing nearby and photographers hoping to take fun or surprising pictures. Inside, everyone wore glittery dresses and perfect suits. Every move they made looked like it had been practiced. Their smiles were bright but felt sharp. They talked about big business deals, art shows, helping charities, and who had just come back from a trip to a fancy place called Santra. A camera slowly moved across the room, showing all the beautiful people. A famous actress in a fancy dress stood near the dessert table, posing. A man who started a huge tech company was talking with rich bankers. Then the camera stopped. Keanu Reeves was standing by the bar. He wore a black suit with no tie. He stood quietly, his long hair tied back. His eyes were calm but hard to understand. He looked at the crowd like he saw something others didn't. He wasn't holding a drink. He didn't smile for no reason. He didn't seem like he belonged, but he still felt more real than anyone else there. A waiter walked by and offered him a glass of champagne. Keanu took it kindly and leaned against the bar, not to relax, but to watch. He didn't want to be seen, he just wanted to notice things. He watched an old man trying to impress a young pop star. He saw a fashion boss making fun of a young girl's shoes. He listened to a group of bankers laughing too hard at a joke that wasn't funny. But he wasn't being mean. He was just paying attention. The camera stayed on him, unsure whether to move away. In a room full of fake smiles, he looked honest. Then the music changed just a little. A few notes floated through the air like something new was about to happen, but nobody knew what yet. Outside, a woman was arriving, not loudly, not with cameras or people calling her name, but quietly. She wore a simple light blue dress and had a name that could make everyone in the room go silent. But no one knew she was there yet. The side door of the Langham Hotel opened with a soft sound. No one took a photo. No one whispered. A woman stepped inside. The bright lights and the sounds of high heels on the marble floor surrounded her. Her dress was soft and simple. Her hair was tied low with a few strands near her face. She didn't wear shiny jewelry. She didn't carry a fancy purse. She only had quiet confidence in every step she took. As she came in, a hotel worker stepped in front of her. "Excuse me, miss," he said kindly. "This party is only for invited guests." The woman stopped. She stood tall but wasn't angry. Her voice was soft and calm with a British sound. "Yes, I know," she said. "I'd like to join the party." The worker looked unsure. He glanced toward the front desk, then looked at her again. Her clothes were plain. She didn't have a bodyguard or fancy shoes. "I'm sorry, but this door is only for guests," he said, though he didn't sound so sure anymore. She didn't argue. She just gave a gentle smile. "You can check again," she said. "But my name won't be on the public list." She wasn't showing off or being bossy. She just knew something he didn't. After a moment, the man stepped aside. "Of course, madam. Enjoy your evening." She gave him a kind nod and walked in. Her shoes made a soft tapping sound on the floor. The lobby was beautiful. There were golden arches, thick velvet curtains, and a soft smell in the air that reminded people of money. But no one looked at her. No one stopped talking. The guests in their sparkly dresses and perfect hair didn't even notice her. Some photographers looked up, hoping she was someone famous. But when they saw her plain dress, they looked away. She kept walking quietly, like a soft breeze in a loud storm. She stopped near the ballroom doors and looked around. A woman in a red dress was laughing too much with a drink in her hand. A group of men were talking loudly about how much a fancy car cost. A rich girl was pouting into her phone camera. And far away at the end of the room, stood the only person who had seen her come in, Keanu Reeves. They didn't look at each other. But the woman let out a small breath, like she was leaving the outside world behind. Tonight she didn't come as a princess. Not as someone in the news. Not as the lady whose pictures are in history books. Tonight she came alone. No bodyguards. No helpers. No big announcement. Just Catherine. Nobody saw her come in, but the story was already starting. She walked further into the room. Her dress moved gently as she walked. The room was busy with music and laughter and the sound of glasses. But she moved calmly, quietly, like a soft wave in still water. No one noticed. until she walked past a big mirror in the middle of the room. That's when the whispers began. 3 women near the food table looked at her. They wore shiny dresses and sparkly diamonds. "Did you see her shoes?" one whispered with a little laugh. "Are those flats?" the second one said, squinting. "She didn't even do her makeup," said the third. "That's not glowing skin, that's no skin care at all. She held a pink drink but didn't drink it." They all giggled in a soft but mean way. At the next table, a man in a white suit looked back and chuckled. "Maybe she's looking for a famous person to stand next to," he said. "You're at the wrong party, lady," a younger man jokes. "Maybe she thought this was a job fair," another added, and they all laughed again. The woman in blue walked past them. She kept her eyes forward. She heard them, of course she did. Their words were just loud enough to be mean but not enough to get caught. That's how rich people talk sometimes. But she didn't flinch. She didn't walk faster. She didn't look small. She stopped near a big flower decoration and pretended to look at the orchids. Her fingers gently touched a petal. It was shaking, not because of her but from all the noise around her. She walked across the room and saw a table that looked empty. She walked over and was about to sit down when a hotel worker in a stiff shirt came quickly. "I'm very sorry, madam," he said. "This table is only for guests with a seat card." She smiled politely. "I understand. Is there another table?" He hesitated. "I think the dinner party is full. Maybe you could go to the lounge." Before she could answer, something happened. Someone moved. Keanu Reeves stood up from his seat at a table in the corner. He walked over calmly, not in a rush. He stood beside her and looked into her eyes. Then he turned to the hotel worker and said quietly, "She's with me." The staff man blinked, surprised. "Of course, Mr. Reeves." She looked at him for the first time, surprised. There was no smile that said, "I'm better than you," no proud look. Only a warm, kind look in his eyes, like he had seen a lot in life and didn't get shocked anymore. Keanu walked with her to his table. And suddenly the room didn't feel so loud. But people were still staring. They didn't stop. They watched, they judged, and they waited to be mean again. Are you still here? If you're still reading, type the number 9 in the comments so we know you stayed until now. The sounds of forks and spoons and talking got quiet. Not silent, but like when a room feels something special is about to happen. Keanu Reeves pulled out a chair and pointed for the woman in blue to sit down. She waited just a second. Not because she was scared. She had already lived through harder things. But because in this world, people are sometimes kind just to get something back. But Keanu's eyes didn't ask for anything. They were calm. "Please," he said softly. "I don't think anyone else deserves your company more than I do tonight." She smiled a little. Just a soft smile. She sat beside him, putting her hands on her lap. She didn't touch her plate yet. All across the room, people whispered like quiet thunder. At a table nearby, a woman with shiny white blonde hair and bright red lips leaned in close to her friends. "Do you think she planned this?" she asked. "Maybe she sat next to Keanu to make a scene." Another woman laughed, sharp and mean. "Maybe she's an actress, some small-time movie star trying to be noticed." A man looked at his phone and frowned. "I checked the news. No pictures of her on the red carpet. Maybe she snuck in." Cameras started to come up, sneaky, hiding behind glasses or held low. One camera flashed too fast. A waitress jumped in surprise. At the big center table, the woman in blue and Keanu stayed quiet for a few minutes. Then Keanu leaned closer. "You knew people would act like this, didn't you?" She turned her head a little. "I thought they might. But you still came?" "I had to," she said, looking at the shiny crowd. "I needed to see what people are like when they think no one's watching." Keanu nodded. His face didn't show much, but his eyes looked sharper now. "They're watching now," he said. "I noticed." He smiled a little. "You haven't touched your drink." She looked at the glass in front of her. Tiny bubbles rose in the champagne. "I like to think clearly," she said, "especially when I walk into trouble." "Smart," he said. "Most people here don't even know they're already in trouble." That made her laugh, real and gentle. Keanu looked happy, like he had made something good happen. But around them the mood changed again. A few tables away someone said loudly, "Keanu always liked helping lost people." Laughter followed, fake and sharp. Someone took a picture. Someone else posted it. "Drama at the party? Keanu brings a mystery woman in a thrift store dress." The caption would spread before dessert. But the woman didn't show any feeling on her face. She just looked around the room and asked Keanu quietly, "Is this what charity looks like now?" He answered right away, "No. But maybe this is what change looks like." Now everyone was looking at them. Watching. whispering, pointing their cameras. It didn't matter that the music still played or the waiters moved around nicely with trays. The real show now was the woman in blue, sitting with Keanu Reeves. Some guests didn't like not being the center of attention. At a table in the corner where rich and important guests sat, a group leaned in ready to be mean. A woman with golden curls and a perfect smile twisted her diamond earring and said, "Keanu's trying to be a hero again. Cute in movies, annoying in real life." Her friend, a famous person who was known more for drama than for talent, giggled. She probably thought he was the parking guy when she got here. Another person laughed and snapped a photo. It caught the woman in blue mid-blink. Not a pretty picture. She typed fast. "Gatecrasher or gold digger? Keanu's new +1 is turning heads, for the wrong reasons." The post flew online like poison in a drink. At the main table, a fashion critic pretending to be just a guest raised her glass and said loudly, "I thought we were checking who came in. That dress looks like it came from a second-hand store." More laughter. More staring. The woman in blue stayed still, calm even though people were being mean. She didn't look down, but her fingers held her glass a little tighter. Keanu saw that. He didn't speak right away. He watched the crowd. He looked at their faces. He saw how they laughed behind sparkly clothes and fake smiles. Then he leaned toward her. "They want you to get upset," he said, voice calm. "They won't win," she answered, but her voice was quieter now. "Good," he said, his eyes colder now. "Because they've already lost something they'll never get back." She looked at him, confused. He explained. "Their dignity." Just then someone behind them laughed loudly again. A man in a velvet jacket showed someone a picture of her online. Keanu turned and looked at them. He didn't look mad, but his eyes were strong enough to make people stop talking and feel small. The laughing stopped. The woman beside him, still a mystery, still not fancy in their eyes, lifted her glass and took a small sip. Not because she wanted the drink, but because of what it meant. She was calm, brave. She wasn't going to back down. Across the room the music changed. The violin sounded a little darker. Something was happening. She had been tested again and didn't move. Not yet. But she would. The air in the ballroom felt different. The laughter got quiet. The talking slowed down. The quiet was louder than the music. Keanu Reeves put down his glass. He stood up, not in a big flashy way but in a way that made everyone look. He turned toward the table that had laughed the most, the one still full of smirks and sneaky stares. Everyone watched him. Phones lifted up. People wanted to catch what he'd say next. The spotlight, even if you couldn't see it, was on him now. "I don't know who she is," Keanu said, his voice clear and steady. People looked at each other. Some were confused. "I didn't ask her to sit with me because she's famous," he went on. "I didn't ask her to join me because of her clothes." Some people chuckled nervously. Keanu looked around the room. His eyes were sharp but not angry. "I asked her to sit with me," he said, "because the way you were treating her was wrong." The chuckle stopped. "And if the only reason you treat someone with kindness is because of their name, their title, or their fancy clothes." He stopped and let that hang in the air. "Then some of you need to look hard at yourselves." The room was so quiet, even the sound of a fork touching a plate felt loud. At the edge of the room a young worker froze. Her tray of drinks shook in her hands. At the center table, Catherine, still unknown to them all, watched Keanu. Her face didn't show much, but her eyes did. Not surprising. Not thanks. But something deeper. She understood him. Across the ballroom, the woman who had taken her picture earlier slowly lowered her phone. Nobody said a word. Nobody dared. Keanu sat down again like he hadn't just torn the mask off a whole room. The room had been holding its breath. And that was the most powerful part of it all. No yelling, no drama. Just the truth, spoken in a calm, honest voice. And in that moment, respect did something that fancy clothes and rich things couldn't do. It made a room full of proud people go quiet. From that moment on, the woman in the light blue dress wasn't just someone strange. She was a mystery. And soon she would become the answer. The room was still shocked from what Keanu said when the lights dimmed, just a little, to show that the event was about to start. The man running the show, wearing a shiny black tuxedo and speaking with a smooth, warm voice, stepped into the spotlight. He held a small card, looked at the crowd, and gave a perfect smile, one he had practiced many times. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "thank you for coming tonight. It's already been a night to remember." Some people laughed a little, not sure what to do. He went on, "Tonight's event was made possible by many kind people, but one person gave a lot without ever asking for thanks or praise." People began to whisper. They looked around. Even the ones who thought nothing surprised them leaned in closer. She helped build homes for soldiers, bring art to kids, and provide shelters for people in trouble. She never wanted to be named, until now. The room got very quiet. Even Keanu looked at her, not surprised but with a small nod, like he now understood what he had been wondering about all along. The man on stage stood tall. Please welcome our special guest and the secret supporter of tonight's event, Her Royal Highness Catherine, Princess of Wales. The room froze. Everyone gasped so hard it felt like the air disappeared. The woman in the pale blue dress, the one people laughed at, ignored, or judged, stood up from the table where Keanu sat. She didn't lift her chin proudly. She didn't smirk, glare, or try to get back at anyone. She just smiled. A soft, kind smile. Then she slowly walked to the stage. Chairs moved loudly as people stood up quickly, not sure if they should clap or say sorry. Phones shook in the hands of people who had been so quick to take pictures before. Keanu stayed seated. His face is calm. His eyes never leave her. The women who had laughed before now stared in shock, their mouths open, realizing the hurt they had caused. One man dropped his glass of champagne. Catherine reached the microphone. She looked out over the crowd, shiny dresses, sorry faces, and wide eyes. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. Tonight, I came not as a princess, she said. I came as a woman. I wore no crown, brought no guards, and walked in just like anyone else. She paused. And I learned something. It's easy to forget to be kind when we think no one important is watching. She let those words stay for a moment. But, she added, I was reminded by one man that you don't need permission, a title, or lights to be decent. She looked at Keanu. He didn't smile. He bowed his head. And in that moment, the room wasn't just surprised. It felt humble. No cameras clicked. No one whispered. The woman they had treated as unimportant now stood in the spotlight. Not wearing royal jewels, not protected by guards. Just standing there with truth and kindness. Catherine looked at them. Her hands resting gently on the podium. No paper. No speech cards. Just the truth she had seen. I didn't come here to make anyone feel bad, she said, her voice gentle but strong. I came to watch. She paused. To remind myself what the world feels like when titles are gone, when rich things don't matter. When no one knows who you are, they only see what you wear, how you enter, or who you sit with. Some people shifted in their seats, feeling uncomfortable. I've been to many events like this, she said. As a name, a title, a photo, people smile bigger. They speak more nicely. Doors open before I even get there. But tonight I asked to come in quietly. No announcement. No guards. No crown. She looked to the back of the room where the workers stood silently, some with tears in their eyes. And what I saw, she said softly, wasn't meanness. Meanness is on purpose. What I saw was something worse. She paused. Not caring. A soft sound went through the room, but she stayed calm. How we treat people when we think they don't matter, that's the real way to see who we are. She looked at one of the women who had laughed at her earlier. The woman blinked. Her eyes are shiny. Her mouth was shaking a little. I'm not angry, Catherine said. I've learned that the coldest hurt doesn't come from hate. It comes from not being seen. From not being cared for. She stepped a little away from the microphone. Her voice now sounds like a gentle whisper. There's a danger, she said, in living only where people cheer for you. Thinking about rich things makes you a good person. In forgetting that titles go away, beauty fades, money can disappear, but how we treat others, that lasts forever. The room got even quieter than before. Then her voice rose just a little. Not to blame, but to honor. There was one person tonight who saw me before anyone else did. He didn't care about my dress, how I came in, or that I was quiet. He saw me as a person. She looked at Keanu. He didn't move. But his stillness said everything. Catherine gave a small nod. And to that person I say, thank you. Thank you for reminding me that true respect doesn't live in castles. It lives in people. She stepped back. No one clapped. Not yet. Because clapping felt too small. She walked down from the stage. No music played. No royal music. Just the soft sound of her shoes on the floor. The same floor she had walked in on when no one noticed her. Now the people around her stood like they were in church. No one looked away. Not because they felt bad now, but because they were amazed. Catherine returned to her seat. But Keanu was already standing. Not to get attention. Not because he had to. But because something deep inside told him, this is the right thing to do for someone who just changed everything without shouting. She looked at him. He didn't say anything. just stood there like a regular person. She smiled, her eyes shining, not with pride but with a kind of joy only people who've been ignored truly understand. She said softly, "Thank you." He replied even softer, "Because you deserve that. We all do." Then finally the room clapped. But it wasn't perfect, fancy clapping. It was real. Some people clapped slowly, unsure. Others wiped their tears first. Even a few who had laughed before now stood up, their cheeks red, their eyes far away, not because they had to, but because they were thinking hard. The rich lady who took a photo earlier put her phone down. The woman in the red dress who made fun of Catherine didn't touch her drink. The man who called her a stray moved his lips like he was saying, "I'm sorry." But no words came out. In the back, an old server clapped gently, a tear running down his cheek. Outside, the city of London was still busy. Cars honked. Bright signs blinked. People laughed on rooftops. The world kept moving. But inside that ballroom, something had changed. And no one would forget the night when a princess walked in quietly, was laughed at, and then rose with such kindness and truth that she broke through the shiny, fancy shell of the room. As the guests sat back down, and the music slowly started again, Catherine looked at Keanu one last time. "Do you think they'll remember this?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "Maybe not all of them," he said at last. "But the ones who needed to, will." They stood together for a short moment. Not as a movie star and a royal. Just as two people. Who chose kindness. Instead of showing off. Catherine picked up her small purse, the one thing she had carried all night. Then, with one last look at the fancy room where she had once felt invisible, she walked out. Through the same door she came in. But this time, everyone watched her. And for a quiet, special moment, every heart in the room walked with her. In a world that cares so much about looks and money, this story reminds us, real worth isn't something we wear. It's something we live. Catherine's kindness when no one knew her, and Keanu's quiet bravery, show us something very true. Kindness doesn't need a crown. And being a good person doesn't need a spotlight. We walk past strangers every day. Some are hurting. Some are secretly royal. But what matters is this, how we treat them. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.